Hello and welcome to this Wisdom Wednesday segment. I'm Deborah Guthrie. Joining me today is Chris Buck. He is the Economic Development Director at Meridian Township. Today we are talking about TIF, T-I-F, Tax Increment Financing.
Correct. Yes.
Sounds so exciting.
It's riveting, yes. It's actually a really powerful tool for economic development.
Yeah, so tell us, we haven't really heard the term TIF in Meridian Township, and now we're hearing it a lot. So explain to us in layman's terms for everybody to understand why TIF is important, what is it, and why is it important in Meridian Township?
Sure. Well, the TIF project that we just worked on here in Meridian had to do with our DDA, our Downtown Development Authority. So in 2006, Meridian Township declared specific boundaries in the township and established a Downtown Development Authority. So it's about 97 parcels that crudely runs from Mount Hope by the Green Bridge up all the way up to Okemos Road up to Grand River Ave, and then splits and goes around the roundabout on Marsh Road up to Grand River Ave as well. So it's a little bit of a wishbone that includes Meyer and down into what most people call downtown Okemos or the Four Corners of Okemos.
And you can look at those maps, those boundary maps online, correct?
If you go to the Meridian Township website, you can go to the Economic Development page and you'll see, or you could even go to the Boards and Commissions page where there's a DDA page. Both of them have a map of our DDA district. So if you're looking
you can see what that outline is.
That's exactly right. Yep. So since we have a legally defined board, a DDA, and a legally defined boundary, the State Act from 1975 that allows DDAs to be established from the state of Michigan allows for tax increment financing. So now what that basically means is we can set, the assessors go out and put a value, a taxable value on every parcel of land in the township every year. And so the DDA can establish a baseline year. So in our case, we established the base of all of the property values on December 31st of 2017. And we're saying, okay, starting at that level, if the property values of these parcels go up over, for whatever reason, but hopefully through development projects, anything above that baseline year, the DDA will capture. So if you had a property valued at $100,000 in 2018, and someone comes through and develops on that property, and now that property is valued at $180,000, the taxes on that $80,000 increment because of that investment, those taxes can be captured by the DDA, and it goes into a pot of money that can only be used to reimburse people for eligible activities. So the DDA TIF plan that was written up and adopted by the Township Board in December of 2018 is a 20-year plan that outlines what types of development projects will be eligible to receive funding and then what the eligible activities could be. So our master plan says
I'm going to go back.
Absolutely, yes.
Before you keep going, because I have a few questions.
Yes.
So if the DDA was formed in 2006, why are we seeing TIF now? And we haven't been hearing about it since 2006. Was it not a plan back then? It's like you just said.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, that's a great question. In 2006, well, that's when the DDA was established. We do have a TIF. We did have a TIF. We just closed out the original TIF from 2006 to start a new one.
Okay.
But the TIF back then, if you think about our downtown Okemos, our DDA district in 2006, we had pretty much every building was occupied. We had a fire station, we had the Mark building, which formerly was a bank, Ace Hardware, Bottoms Up, Tuba Museum, White Brothers Music, the list goes on and on. These businesses were all occupied. And so we had a tax increment financing plan, but if you think about 2006, you set the baseline. Well, what happened in 2008? Okay, the economy kind of tanked, businesses were starting to really falter, and so the values didn't rise. They stayed the same or went down. So there was really not much money that was being collected on the increment. And really, there wasn't a whole lot of money needed. It was really designed at that time to be just an aesthetic, builder. So like the potted plants, the hanging baskets, the snowflakes that the DDA put in, and then they put in the lighting project. So downtown, the Four Corners of downtown Okemos, we thought was underlit, and we wanted it to be this kind of charming, walkable little downtown area. So the DDA at the time allocated funds to put in a street lighting project. So at that time, it was all really just about beautification and keeping the place kind of spruced up for people coming down to visit, all these businesses that were open.
Aesthetics, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So now you fast forward 13 years, and especially on the west side of Okemos Road, every building is empty on that first block. I mean, you get in and you get to the Masons and you get to Douglas J and some of those places, but truly from Clinton to Hamilton to Methodist, all those businesses on the west side of Okemos Road are shuttered. And so now we need to have the DDA. What we're understanding is we want the DDA to have a little bit more horsepower to be able to get development projects to happen. So we decided to rewrite our DDA TIF plan, start a new baseline year now that all the economic turmoil from 2008 to 2000, call it 11 or 12, is behind us. There was a long conversation, it could be another show, about Myers tax appeal that kind of took a lot of money out of the DDA coffers. So we really needed to start it with a clear slate, a clear lens for what we were trying to get accomplished, and kind of start over. But do it really quickly, because now is the time that development projects are starting to kind of boil up and people are saying, we want to do something here. We have the money that we can borrow. We've got ideas of what we want to build. We've seen your master plan and we know what the township wants and we think we can deliver it. But as we really assess this land, there are two major challenges we find to make this area redevelopment ready, and that is the infrastructure, which I'll talk about in a second, and then environmental contamination. So the infrastructure, it's the oldest part of the township. We've got dirt roads back there. We've got crumbling sidewalks, kind of poor roadways, the plumbing and the water and sewer lines, the power lines, all of that stuff are just dated. And if the developer wants to come in and do something that's kind of a high usage, a lot of that's going to need to be updated. So roads and sidewalks and then all of the utilities are all going to need to really be considered. And then the other part is environmental contamination. Now the DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality, can be engaged to do brownfield work, which I will talk about at another time. But the DEQ isn't flushed with cash. And so we've uncovered a lot of environmental contamination in this area.
More than you thought.
More than we thought. So we've got a vacant dry cleaner site that has a lot of underground contamination, and unfortunately it's on a steeply sloping hill. And so the DEQ has done some testing, and it seems as though the contamination has kind of flowed underground, and it's going downhill, under roads, under parking lots. And
how far does it go?
I don't know.
Do they know?
The DEQ probably knows. Again, I'm not. There are people that do that, so I decided to spend my time doing stuff that I know how to do. But it's significant and takes over a lot of land over there. Plus, there are 3 former gas stations. So most people know that gas stations that are now gone, underground tanks and contaminated soils and all that kind of stuff.
Hard to get something else there.
Right.
Yeah.
So any developer is going to say, I have an idea of what I want to build, but the cost of turning this place into a space where I can just, a developer is going to say, okay, if there's something there, I need a budget.
It's not worth the investment.
Exactly.
Basically.
My job as a developer is to demo what's there and build something really cool. But in their case, it's going to be somewhere between maybe $10 and $25 million just to get this area, whether it's roads and sidewalks and utilities or the spillover expenses, figuratively and literally, I guess, of what the DEQ isn't likely to be able to fund. So the DDA TIF monies that are actually going to be created from the increased value of this land that the developer is going to develop on is going to create the money that we can then turn around and give back to the developer for the work that he is going to have to do that honestly he shouldn't have to do.
So let me back up.
Please.
I'm going to timeline this whole thing.
Yes.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
So 2006, DDA forms.
Yep.
They have a TIF plan,
Yep.
which is aesthetic in nature,
Yep.
above ground. There really wasn't any research done for what's underground. It was businesses were there, let's help them out, let's beautify, let's put some artwork in, lamp posts, LED lights, snowflakes, banners.
Flowers.
Let's celebrate this area, flowers.
Correct.
Let's try to get this going.
Right.
So then the township discovers, the fire station, what happened at the fire station with their issues, and then at some point discovers this contamination underground. And so we need a whole new TIF plan. Is this correct?
Yep, pretty much, yep.
So the township board approves this TIF plan
Correct.
in when?
December of 18.
December of 18. So there's a new TIF plan in place.
Yep.
And who are all of the people? Are there other entities involved with this TIF plan? Who are the
Right.
entities involved?
Well, the DDA is the steward of the TIF plan.
Okay.
So then the DDA knew that this was a big project, so they engaged
But the township
with
is
consultants.
spearheading this
Oh,
whole.
absolutely, yes.
That's
Yep.
why you're hired. You're
Correct.
spearheading this whole thing.
Exactly, yep. So I am the staffer who is the staff support for the DDA, which is made up of a group of volunteer Meridian citizens who have
Who
an
live
interest
within that area.
live or have a business interest within that area. And so they're the board that is advocating for this development with me, and we engage with consultants. They helped us kind of shape this whole plan so that the township board really didn't have to do all of the work.
Yeah.
But we rather got the paperwork all together and then presented it to the
presentation.
township board. Yep. And we alerted them that the project was starting. We gave them kind of updates along the way, presented them with a draft, got some questions from them answered, and then went back with our final adoption, and they adopted it in December.
Okay.
Now, the other people that are involved is in order for the TIF, the tax capture, to capture as much money as we can, the goal would be to go out and present this new DDA TIF plan. It's actually state law that we need to announce that we're doing this because Meridian Township collects these taxes, but then distributes these taxes to other entities in our region. So CATA, our transportation authority, the Capital Regional Airport Authority, so our Lansing Airport, Lansing Community College, the library system, CATL, and then Ingham County as a governing body as well, are all people that count on all of the money that Meridian collects. There are mills that are in our,
Right.
that need to get dispersed back to them.
Yep.
So we went out with our consultants and me as staff, took the draft of this DDA TIF plan, and we went out and talked to all of them because they legally have the right to either opt in on this project because they feel like the rehabilitation of downtown Okemos is a benefit for the region and will have trailing effects that are positive for them, or they could opt out and say, we don't want to participate. You can collect your own local mills. You can, if the transportation people want to contribute, that's great, but us over at some other organization, we don't feel that there's as much value. We want to opt out. And then
Is it a requirement for you to go to them to ask them?
it's a requirement for us to let them know that we have a new TIF plan, and we have to spell out what it is, how long it is, what we expect what the eligible activities are and all of that. And then they have the ability to say, yes, we'd like to participate, or no, we don't want to participate.
What is the benefit for them to participate?
Well, if you think about it, so the airport, or let's say the library system, okay? The CATL has a library 0.6 of a mile from this area that is going to potentially have a redevelopment project. So if this redevelopment project brings 400 new residents within a stroll of the library, they could have more membership. If this development project houses another 400 people, and say they're young professionals or empty nesters, and it's a population surge, well, that could spark more LCC enrollment. I'm going to go back.
More travel, more people using
exactly.
the airport.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So CATA could put a bus stop in front of there and get more ridership to get people down the road off the Route 1 line.
There's more riders for MDUs than there are for single-family homes, correct?
Yep. And
Okay.
these types of homes could have young professionals, and they may fly in and out of Lansing, airport. So, really, it's and it also can be emotional. It's like if our region is going to continue to be on the upswing, we can't have these areas of blight within an otherwise dynamic and vibrant community. So really, if the region's going to survive on the whole, we need pockets of this region to reinvest in itself And that will make the Lansing Airport viable for 20, 30, 50 years.
How did they, who talked with them about opting in? Was that you?
I went with the consultant.
With the consultant?
Yep.
How do they see? I can see it because I've been here, I've lived here for 40 years, so I highly believe that this downtown area can turn around.
Yep.
But how do regional partners, like the Lansing Airport, and there's someone new overseeing the Lansing Airport.
Yep.
How are you able to convince them, and the consultant convince them to look at this? Because it looks like, like a bomb was dropped in downtown Okemos. It looks pretty sad. How are they able to see, or are you able to convince them that the vision can come through to fruition?
Well, it's a true presentation. We had originally a 36-slide PowerPoint that showed the state of what it is now and all the empty buildings, and talked about the history and how it's a shadow of its former self, and then really measured out what we think on charts and graphs that talk about, here's the taxable value now, here's the history of what the taxes have been from these parcels, how they've not been keeping up their end of the bargain, what the averages are for 5, 10, 15, and 20 years, how much it fluctuates. And then we talk about, if this development project were to happen, based on our assessor's broad review of the square footage of commercial and numbers of residences and things of that nature, here's how the values would increase. And so if it goes up like this, then this amount of money can be captured to be used to make the project happen. And then because that number is going to grow really fast, we took a look and we actually explained to these taxing jurisdictions that we wanted them to not feel like they were going to lose anything. And so we looked, and every year a number is thrown out there as to what an average parcel of land in Michigan appreciates every year. So you can see, hey, in 2016, the average parcel of land increased in its value by 1.6%. And in 2010, it went down 0.64%, and then whatever. So you have a 20-year history, a 15-year history, and we looked at the 20-year history, which was the highest number. And the average parcel, unaffected and undeveloped, if it just sat there the same way it was, it averaged an appreciated growth of 2.14% a year.
In this area? In the DDA
in the state
area?
Of Michigan.
In the state of Michigan?
Yep.
Okay.
So we said, you know what, if that's the case, and we believe we're going to have this windfall of development, we're willing, as long as the development project happens, to pass along an annual escalator. So like I said, we're going to set the baseline on the 2018 value of the land. Well, let's say the development project happens, which I'm optimistic it's going to. They'll get the 2018 value. And then in 2019, of taxes, as taxes come in and they get dispersed, they'll get 2018's value. If the value, the expectation is as the value goes up, they're going to get last year's number times 2.14%.
Okay.
And then that number's a little bigger. And then the next year comes, and it's going to be that number times 2.14%. And so they're going to see an annual step up that's equal to the highest average bump. Because
what does the township get out of it?
Same thing.
Okay.
So
I've heard some, skeptic comments, negative comments on Facebook and other social media, sites of people saying, why are we subsidizing?
We're not, and that's the truth. First of all, it's really complex. I don't fault these people for having that knee jerk. It's corporate welfare. Why would the library write checks to let this rich developer build a property he's going to make money on? I get their perspective, but it's just simply not how it works. If we can't find a way to create the $20 million it's going to take to clean up the environmental contamination that's not the developer's fault, or update the infrastructure, the utilities and the sidewalks and the roads that are not the developer's fault, and the developer goes away, then everyone's going to get the same taxes, which at this point are probably going to deteriorate because the value of that land kind of continues to go down, especially now that we know it's got these massive shortfalls. And I think that the township board would tell you that they are now motivated, knowing we've got a significant environmental contamination that could theoretically be threatening the welfare of our citizens, and we still need to probably clean it up so we can make it more construction ready. I don't think anyone wants a huge millage or a special assessment district where everyone has to write a $10,000 check in the township to raise this $20 million and then go try to find a developer to do it once we get it all done.
So there's no cost to residents, to homeowners. And what I'm hearing you say is, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is that potentially if it continues to go undeveloped, somebody's going to have to pay for it.
Correct.
In the end because of the contamination and the spread.
And that's where you're going to see pain. You know, we really have moon and stars aligning here, where we've got a significant need for something to happen, and we've got a developer now who has amassed control of a large chunk of real estate down there, 3 whole blocks, where all of that contamination really resides. And so now the DEQ is really activated. They want to come in and do this work to clean up this part. It's been a pin on their map in the state of Michigan of a place that they believe needs to be cleaned up with a sense of urgency, but they've got a lot of pins on that map around the state. And so they've waited until there's a development project so they can come in and do it to help a development project occur. So now,
do they pay for some of this?
Yes. In fact, we're in the middle of that process now. The DEQ, they have. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
But
be simple in your explanation. Go easy on us, Chris.
There's a lot of different types of environmental contamination, and depending on the type, there are eligible grants and loan opportunities. So there are probably going to be 3 or 4 or 5 or more different buckets of cash that are going to be tapped. It's like, okay, well, to clean up this.
Do they write that, or do you write that, or do you work with them on that?
We're working with them. We have a Brownfield Redevelopment Authority here at the township as well. So the DDA is doing their TIF plan, and one of the DDA TIF plan eligible activities, I guess one of the big punchlines that I want to really reiterate is this work is going to be done and paid for by people outside of Meridian Township's government. Like, we're not paying for this. So the developer is going to come in and they're going to contract with the DEQ. They're going to contract with consumers. They're going to contract with the road department. They're going to contract with all these. So they're going to do all of the work. And then because that type of work is written in as eligible activities in our new DDA TIF plan, they're going to go spend the money, get the work done, and then provide receipts to our DDA. And the DDA will review those receipts, confirm with our consultants that we have at the DDA level. There's a lot of checks and balances. Again, this is highly regulated. And then the developer will be reimbursed from this tax increment coffer of cash, which was really created by the fact that his development project exists to begin with.
Would you look at it as an I know you're going to look at it as an investment. How would you explain to people that the benefit that the developers are receiving or the taxing jurisdictions are receiving from this isn't a loss in taxes coming to the township? Because I could see people's minds turning and saying, well, they're not even getting anything right now. There's nothing.
Sure.
Is that correct?
Well, not really. I mean, every year, all of these parcels in the township, all over the place, not just the DDA, the assessor creates a value for what the taxable value of that property is, and that drives what the landowner pays in taxes. So the long story short is if there are no incentives for the developer to do work that the developer shouldn't have to do, there won't be a development project. So if we don't activate a tax increment financing plan, the DDA is going to sit the way it is now. So we've had plenty of... You
have to have this new plan.
Yes, because if you really look at how much money a person's going to invest in a development project and how much income they're going to make once they've invested that money, it's never going to work if you have an approximately $20 million cost just before you demo buildings and start your construction project. So if it's a $100 million project and you're going to then have a building that houses people who are paying you rent, whether it's a commercial entity, an office space, or a residential space, you're going to factor in how much it costs you to build that building, and then how much you're going to charge in rent, and how much you're going to recoup out of all the money you're going to put in. If you just throw a $20 million cost on top of that to remove the environmental contamination and upgrade the infrastructure, they're going to go find a farmer's field that's just an easier palette to paint on and just build something over there. That's why these programs exist. Brownfield tax credits, tax increment financing. It's designed to repurpose dilapidated land that's already been used for another purpose.
Instead of spreading out.
Yes.
Okay.
It's infill and density instead of sprawl. We want a developer to say, I could build it over here in this grassy field, or I could take this old GM plant that's vacant, and if you just use them apples to apples, it's always cheaper to turn a green field into a development project, regardless of what it is, apartment complex, a hotel, or a grocery store. It's easier to take a field and do it than it is to take over something that's already had a use. So the government...
3 gas stations.
Exactly,
and
right.
a dry cleaner.
So the government, and Michigan's not unique in this at all either, and Meridian's not unique to Michigan. This is a method that is designed to find not the easiest way, because it's complex as heck, but to find ways to motivate developers to repurpose land that has already been used, but its use is either past its useful life or an antiquated model or a vacant space of land. We want to kind of level that playing field to steer them towards repurposing old, dilapidated, used land.
I was in California once, out of the several times I've been there.
Yeah.
And I had this cab driver, and he said, "Where are you from?" And I used to always say Detroit, because I just knew everyone around the country would know Detroit.
Yep.
He's like, "Oh, donut hole." I go, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "It's a donut hole." And I thought, yeah, there's like nothing in this. This is ages ago before they started, fixing it up and stuff. But that's kind of where
Mayor
Okemos
Bernero said the exact same thing. He said Lansing needs to be the hub of the wheel, not the hole in the donut.
Exactly.
So we can't just have a bunch of great suburbs with a catastrophe as the city of Lansing. And yes, downtown Okemos currently serves that hole of the donut. We've got great sought-after subdivisions that people are clamoring to get into. We've got great school districts, world-class school districts. We've got a wonderful Parks and Rec department and land preservation and trails and network and that right. But really, the areas that need help are getting these dilapidated former business districts back up to snuff. And we've got a developer who wants to put a bunch of money into this one big hole of our donut. And there are all these very legally and highly regulated opportunities for us to make that economically viable and really shield the citizens from having to pay out of pocket to clean up the place, so that then I can go try to market that place as kind of shovel ready to a developer. We have the good fortune to have a developer who's willing to kind of wait for us to get these tools in place so that we can help him do the work himself, with the promise that we'll find ways to get him reimbursed. So brownfield tax credits, this DDA tax increment financing, grants and loans through the DEQ. The township has a redevelopment fund. I mean, we've done a lot of things to try to drive developers to this area.
It's all part of this.
And this is all part of it. Yeah, 2018 was all spent creating the foundation, figuratively and literally, for this project to get off the ground. And 2019, I think it's going to happen.
So this interview will air after your DDA meeting on Monday. Is it Monday?
It's Monday morning, yep.
Monday the 4th? Is it Monday 1, 2, 3, 4? Monday the 4th.
Monday the 4th, yes.
So Monday the 4th is a DDA meeting. This will interview after that. What do you what will come next for this TIF plan? What's next?
Well, the TIF plan, specifically the TIF plan, it's been adopted. All of those taxing jurisdictions, Cattle, Airport, all those folks have already made their decisions, and we got 95% of everything we were searching for. So now that's all done and waiting to be used. What the DDA needs to work on next, and we're going to discuss at our meeting on Monday morning, is because we're a redevelopment ready certified community, the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, is going to pay up to $20,000 for outside contractor who we've already found to help us write all the policies and procedures and application processes for someone to actually use that.
Okay.
So now we've established that we're going to be able to start collecting, waves of money
Okay.
from, every time the tax roll is run, assuming there is an increment that will be collected, we will establish this bank account and the money will start coming in. But now we need to have all the legal forms that says, hi, I'm a developer and I spent money on what I think is an eligible activity. How do I fill out a process? And then how does the DDA vet it? What channels does it go through, before a check is written? So all of that is coming next. So from a TIF specific plan, we are going to embark on that, and I think we can get that done in the next 60 days.
And people would be interested in applying for that when? After the contamination's clean? I mean, do they want to see contamination cleaned up before they even apply for something like that? Or is
no.
a good faith?
It's really, and again, we're just embarking on what those rules are, but and I'm learning all of this. But my understanding is that the application comes before the work's done, before the work started.
Okay.
So, if an eligible activity is to upgrade the sidewalks and, or whatever, and a developer is like, okay, well, I want to have that done, so I'm going to contract with XYZ company and I'm going to get that work done, and it's going to cost about this much, and I want to put it out there before I do the work. I want you to know that I'm going to do the work, make sure I'm doing it to your qualifications, so that I have reasonable assurances that when they're done their work in 9 months, I can turn in my receipts, you'll go through your process, and I'll get my money back.
Okay.
That's why the urgency is, even though the bills may, the money, actually the interesting part is, think about this for a second, that money isn't going to start really coming into the DDA for probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So the developer is going to put a lot of this money out there.
Up front.
And then they're going to need to wait until there's enough. It's like, okay, well, I applied and that I'm doing this work. We have estimates as to how much the work is going to cost. I've spent $6.2 million on these specific things that you've kind of pre-approved. And now we're going to wait 3 or 4 years until you actually have money.
Wow.
And then I'll get my check back.
Wow.
So that's a real safeguard for the community. So for those that are talking about corporate welfare and how can we finance all of this, nothing happened. I mean, the developer really, even now, even with all of these tools we're putting into place to make it more economically attractive, to make him develop in this area that the township has been clamoring for development in, they still are, I wouldn't say taking on hardship, but it's still, they got to really believe in their project and be grateful for the what we're doing for them. We're not just
time invested too.
It really is. Yep.
Not just finance, but the time.
Correct.
It's unbelievable.
Yep. So
Okay.
So it's all it's a really, really complex issue. So as people in the community hear one iota of what's going on and have their negative knee-jerk reaction, I completely understand why they may have that initial gut reaction, but I implore them to watch this and really, get involved, ask questions if you want to, or
if it's confusing,
Yeah.
or even if it's a positive comment that may be factually wrong, because it's very confusing, it's
Yep.
very complex. You're here to answer whatever questions people may
Absolutely,
have.
yep. But
And you're always on the economic development
Yep.
fan page.
Correct, for Facebook.
You and I live there on Facebook.
Yes, we do.
And you're always on the Four Corners.
Yep. Four Corners Alliance of Okemos is a closed Facebook group, but we've got almost 400 people on there, and if you request to join it, you're likely to be approved.
You're probably going to be
There's a
added.
gatekeeper, but they let you in.
Yep.
The
Yep.
Meridian Economic Development page is just just click like and you'll get all the updates. You go to the Meridian Township website and go to the Economic Development page. You'll get my phone number at my desk. You'll get my email address.
And what is it? Can you say it?
Yeah,
real
it's
quick?
buck@meridian.mi.us, and my phone number is 853-4568.
So any questions?
Email
somebody
or
may have
questions.
about the
Yep.
process.
Yes, absolutely. I'm always available for questions, but I would just say, I was a citizen who had my doubts as I kind of paid attention to this stuff in the periphery, and I realize now that I've been doing this for a little over a year that I had no idea what I was talking about. And I'm learning now, I wouldn't say trust me, I'm the government,
Yeah.
but I would say trust me. It's highly regulated. It's all above board. It's happening all over the state. It does work. It can be done wrong, but we're doing it right. Really, everyone is using what Meridian Township's done, honestly, all the way back from our master plan to our redevelopment ready community certification, 29th municipality in the entire state to achieve that. And we did it in a third of the time. The average community has gotten it done. This DDA TIF plan, we're getting
the first township.
the first township in the state.
Yeah.
Yep. Our DDA TIF plan is being revered as a wild success, and so a lot of people that are paying attention in this vein around the state continually applaud Meridian Township. I mean, shoot, our police and fire millage to get out of our underfunded pension liability. I mean, we are trendsetters here.
You almost
in
want a
Meridian.
digital board in downtown Okemos that says, you may not see stuff happening right now, but believe me,
Right.
here's what's going on in the background. Now we're getting these contracts in place. Now
Right.
we're getting these,
Right.
whatever agreents in place.
Facebook
TIF plan.
is a virtual place to find that.
Yes.
And, we'd have to change our sign ordinances to have that reader board. Because right now our ordinances don't allow those reader boards, which is probably a good thing.
You could just stand out there, Chris.
Right.
This is what we did this week for downtown.
Yeah, I'm not bored, so I don't know if I have that kind of time, but it's a pleasure. It's fun to do. I'm learning a ton, and we're partnering with all the right people, and we've got a lot of advisors. And the township's doing a lot right, and I just would say, again, we're really turning the corner here on a lot of these big projects, and I think the world is going to be thrilled with the after of downtown Okemos.
Okay.
I've seen some early renderings, and
Yeah.
we're going to start unveiling what the project's
Yeah.
going to look like for the
That's
first time.
exciting.
And I think when we look up in 18 months or 24 months when it's done, and when we look up in maybe a couple of months and see things start to move, people are going to feel good, about where we're headed and proud of our downtown again. And that's really the goal.
So next for TIF plan is a bunch of contractual stuff that's going on in the background, and then
The environmental cleanup and then some of the infrastructure work will probably begin a little later in this year, as the developer is going through the approval process for the actual buildings.
okay.
Yep, so stay tuned. It's going to be a very, very hot topic. I expect it to sail through the approval process, because when you see what it's going to look like and the purpose it's going to serve and just the sheer aesthetic of it and the historical significance and the people that are partnering with the developer to make sure that it isn't an eyesore, that it looks as though it's always been there. It's really, again, there's always going to be naysayers. There are people who are going to comment that awning
Well,
shade
we can
of blue
tell
is,
you're super passionate about it.
Yep,
That's
I'm excited.
good. Yeah.
Yep, so we're ready to run.
Well, thank you for explaining tax increment financing, the TIF plan, and how it's transformed over the years and how the new one is different from the old one.
Yep.
If it's confusing, rewind this, watch this a few times, or just give Chris a call. Give him a shout out on Facebook or email or phone, the old method.
Yep.
And you're willing and ready to answer any questions. So thanks for joining us. This was going to be a 5-minute interview. It's so complex. We needed it to be longer, of course. And we'll see you next time for the next Wisdom Wednesday.